Hey everyone, welcome back to Mike's Final Experience. Thank you all so much for being with me here today. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Today I just want to take an opportunity and share with you my experiences thus far with Wilson Audio, the Watt Puppy speakers. I'm just shy one day of having these installed in my system behind me, just one day shy of 3 weeks. And I tell you what, I have just been absolutely listening like crazy, spending a lot of time listening to the speakers. And as you all well know, when you get a new piece of equipment, whether it be a source equipment, amplification, new speakers, like in my situation, you really want to go through your collection and hear what differences this new piece of equipment, whatever it might be, has made to the entire system. Well, with new speakers, as many of you are well know, it's a huge difference because typically speakers, and of course I went from one manufacturer to another, and so it's really been really mind-blowing if you want to know the truth. A year and a half ago when I got my new VPI Prime 21 record player with the Hanna ML moving coil cartridge, that replaced a Denon DP 1200 with a Benz Micro Gold cartridge. And to be honest with you, that record player, the Denon DP 1200 and that Benz Micro cartridge was a fantastic setup. It really did sound good. But just making that change uh, from what was a 40-year-old turntable, the Denon DP 1200, to the cartridge wasn't that old. It was maybe, I don't know, 8 7 8 years old, maybe 9. It wasn't that old of a cartridge. But making that change from the VPI, from the Denon to the VPI, and of course from the Benz Micro to a Hanna ML was quite a significant change, just in vinyl playback. Well, going from my Bowers and Wilkins Matrix 803 Series 2 speakers, which were really good speakers to be honest with you, and served me for 30 plus years, to the new 50th anniversary Wilson Audio, the Watt Puppy. It was a significant, and I do mean significant change, along with the change just in speakers. As you can see behind me, I did the room acoustics, which has had yet another huge impact on the sound of the room as well. And so with these changes, they've been major, not minor, in the sound of the music. And so I really kind of want to share with you really quickly. And as I do this, I'm going to go through some of the albums, not all. I'm just going to go through some of the albums that I've been listening to in this past 3 weeks that I have really felt were significantly different in sound than what I have been used to. And the albums that I'll share with you are not necessarily albums. Well, a couple of them are remastered reissues, but none of them are what you would call audiophile represses, remastered, reissued vinyl. They're, for the very most part, original pressings. And the purpose for that is I really wanted to listen to music that I really truly enjoy and love. Not that there's not a lot of those audiophile type albums out there that I love and enjoy. There plenty, and I can't wait to get to those. But I really wanted to just to really get acquainted with these speakers. I really wanted to listen to music on vinyl that I truly love and enjoy. And some of these are, and most of these are all original pressings, and I'll show you the ones that are and the ones that are not. But these albums really have just kind of really stuck out to me, and just have kind of given me a different presentation through these speakers than what I have been used to. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And the albums that I've selected mostly are albums along the folk rock, pop, uh, area. I've been listening to a ton of jazz as well. I could, and I probably will at some point, maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll do a follow-up video on jazz that I've been listening to. I've been listening to a ton of jazz. I love jazz music, and I've been listening to a ton of those. But I haven't really been listening to any necessarily as of yet audiophile type albums, with the exception of a couple of the ones that I have done reviews on, and there'll be a couple of more of those coming up here in the next few days that I'll be doing as well. But I just really want to share with you my thoughts and my impressions with these new speakers in my room. I mean, when you go and you purchase new speakers, or when you're looking for new speakers and shopping around, you're hearing these different speakers that you're listening to in an environment that is not yours. You're listening to them in an audio salon, uh, maybe even in some cases, and I did this, in other people's homes. And so you're not listening to them in your space. And when you get them in your space, and I can tell you this firsthand, they take on uh, a little bit different sound than maybe what you've been listening to. And in my case, which is a good thing, I'm grateful for, it's been better. I cannot believe how well these speakers sound in my space, in my room that you're seeing behind me. I'm just tickled pink with what's going on so far. But keep in mind, I don't believe that they're fully broke in yet. I don't know that they've reached their capability of what they can really truly sound like as of yet. I'll probably do a complete and full review on these speakers. I don't know, probably sometime along February, after I've had a really good long time to absorb the speakers, and hopefully by then they'll have kind of reached their break-in period. The way I'm listening to them, it shouldn't take long for them to reach that. And I don't even know if there's a set number of hours that they get broke in. I don't even know. But I think that'll at least give me an opportunity to have spend at least 2 to 3, 4 months with these speakers before I completely do a complete review of them. So far, I'm absolutely overwhelmed and absolutely excited for. Let me go ahead and get started. Let's talk about some of the music that I've been listening to. And while along that route, I'll kind of give you some of the impressions that I'm hearing with these incredible new speakers. So just shy of 3 weeks ago, the Wilson Audio, the Watt Puppy speakers were installed. I got to tell you just a quick little history behind the Wilson Audio as it pertains to me uh, in the Wilson Audio, the Watt Puppy. I, I've been listening to Wilson speakers mostly in audio salons, trade shows, and so forth for very, very many years. I remember listening to the Wilson Audio Watt Puppies in the 80s through the 90s and even into the early 2000s until they got to the Wilson Audio Watt Puppy 8 and they discontinued the Watt Puppy. I've always coveted, and I know that's probably not appropriate and not the right thing to say, but it's the truth. I've always coveted these speakers. I remember going down. My first time that I ever heard them was in Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show, and I can't even begin to tell you what version they were, but they were one of the very earliest versions when David Wilson took the Watt, which is the top portion of the speaker, and mated that with the puppy, the subwoofer type portion of the speaker. And I remember listening to those speakers in a room, and I believe it was at the Sahara Hotel in Las Vegas. And I went back to that room, I don't know how many times that weekend, just to listen to those speakers because they were just completely different than anything else that I was listening to throughout the show. They are absolutely stunning. Of course, back then and even through the 2000s until they stopped selling the Watt Puppy, I could never afford them. They were just way out of reach. Only until I got to the age that I am now in retirement have I been fortunate enough to own a pair of Wilson the Watt Puppy speakers. And I really didn't take out to look for the Wilson Audio Watt speakers, Watt Puppy speakers when I started looking for speakers. I was really interested in the Sabrinas because they were more along the lines and in the financial area that I was looking for. And I remember this day, and I've told you this probably 2 or 3 different times. It was June 7th of 2024 this year when I went up to Utah Audio to listen to the Sabrinas, And that was the very day that they introduced the Watt Puppy 50th anniversary. And of course, the Wilson Audio people were there, and the salesman that I've been working with up there, Tyler, such a great guy, said, "You really need to sit down and listen to these." And they had a big event for them later that night, and I came up and listened to them again. But when I sit down and listen to them at that point, and I knew at the back of my head, um, these are the speakers I'm going to end up with, because they were just completely unbelievable. And even though I just really couldn't see myself going that direction, because they are a significant difference in cost than the other speakers that I were looking at. And so I wrestled with that for a few months, but I just knew in the back of my mind that that's where I really needed to go, and I'm grateful that I did. But let me go ahead and get started with you and just kind of tell you what I've been listening to, and just kind of give you a little bit idea of what these speakers are and what they are sounding like in my room. Because I tell you what, it's been such a huge difference in what I'm used to, from top to bottom end heft, weight, definition, and detail, to top end extension and just overall cleanliness and detail. The first thing that I notice with these speakers, and as I go through these albums, I'll kind of touch on it a little bit more. But the first thing I noticed with these speakers when I first listened to them on June 7th, 2024, was the width of the stage and the depth of the stage. These speakers throw an image that is just remarkable. It just, to me, it was just unbelievable. And I've captured that in my room. What's different in my room than what was in the showroom is the bottom end definition. It's not, and I'm not trying to say that it was boomy or that it was a little bit bass heavy, but in my room, they are absolutely phenomenal in the bottom end. And the bottom end they're significantly different than the Bowers and Wilkins 803s. These go quite a bit deeper. They go down to 26 hertz, whereas the Matrix 803s, I believe, went down to 33 or 34 hertz. So there's quite a huge difference in that presentation. But these speakers are what I call very, very, very full bodied. In other words, from top to bottom, I believe you're getting literally everything there. They're not thin on the top end, they are extended. But boy, I tell you what, it's controlled, and it's very, very well defined, and it's clear. And that is really what you're looking for. As I've talked with you before, as I've done a lot of these videos talking about my upgrade path, and some of the things that mean a lot to me is the sound of a piano. And of course, one of the albums that I pulled out was Elton John's first album, titled Elton John. Now, this is a remaster. It's not the original version of the album. It's a remaster that was done, I believe, in 2017. It was remastered by Bob Ludwig, and it really sounds excellent. I've got the original pressing, but this one sounds much, 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 much better. But boy, I tell you what, you just put this album on, and you can listen to any of the songs on this album. The Border song, Your Song is fantastic. 60 Years On, what a fantastic cut that is. And boy, I tell you what, it's just an incredible, incredible journey listening to them on the Wilson Audio, the Watt Puppy. Fantastic album. I had a great time with this album. Most of these albums, and the reasons that I chose them, are albums that I just couldn't take off after listening to a cut or two. I had to keep listening to them, turning the record over, listening to the entire album. They're just that good. The next album that I want to share with you is Kim Carnes Voyeur. It's an original pressing. This one was actually mastered by Doug Sachs originally. This is just a fantastic, dynamic, incredible album on here. Let me just tell you a couple of the songs. Of course, Voyeur and Looker are just absolutely classic. Undertow and Merkman, absolutely fantastic. The saxophone in this album is stunning. I just can't believe how well it stands out. And imaging is just incredible, well beyond the sidewalls of the speakers. Incredible album, Kim Carnes Voyeur. The next album really doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. I'm sure you've heard it and you probably have it in your collection, but this is Jackson Browne, The Pretender. What an incredible, amazing album this is. This was done in 1976 when it was released. Believe it or not, the guy that did the mastering on it was none other than Bernie Grundman. No wonder it sounds great. This is an original pressing from 76. It does have that embossed cover on it. Is really cool. On the first side of the album, The Fuse uh, is excellent. Your Bright Baby Blue Eyes. Of course, Here Come Those Tears Again is probably the most popular song on the album, and it sounds fantastic, really on here. But the one that the song on here that was just amazing was Linda Paloma on this album. You've got to hear this. There's a harp in the song, and I've never really heard it before. I've never really picked it out before. But boy, I tell you what, it comes through very vividly on these new speakers. This is a joy to listen to this album. Jackson Browne, The Pretender. What a great album this is. And then the next album, and I don't know if you've had a chance to hear this before, but Frank Sinatra at the Sands with the Count Basie Orchestra. Of course, it was arranged and conducted by Quincy Jones. This was done in 1966. This is a fantastic album. The sound quality, this is an original pressing. The sound quality is absolutely stunning for an album recorded live at the Sands Hotel in 1966. The top end on this was a little shrill on my 803 Series 2 speakers, not to the point where I felt like I needed to turn it off, but I turned it down. You know what? It's still there, and it's still very, very extended on the top end with the Watt Puppies, but there's no shrill. It just sounds absolutely stunning with definition that I just can't believe that this was recorded back in 1966. What an incredible double album this is. Absolutely a phenomenal sounding album. I had a lot of fun with this album. I played both albums. I just couldn't stop listening to it because you're just hearing things so differently than I've heard them before. And like I say, and especially on a live album like this one, where the crowd noise is so prevalent, the speakers, I mean, you can see the sidewalls behind me. Well, it's only like 12, almost not quite 13 feet wide, but I tell you what, it felt like it was like 25 or 30 feet wide with the sound stage that these things throw. It was unbelievable. Another great album that I spent a lot of time with was Bob Dylan, Desire. This is an original pressing from 1976. As you know, Bob Dylan albums, he plays a lot of instruments, not to mention, guitars and of course the harmonica. This album is a great sounding recording. It sounds excellent. Uh, there's just so many songs on this album. I don't even know if I could uh, name just one or two on here, but this is a fantastic album that I just couldn't stop listening to and had to listen to the entire album. Uh, Bob Dylan, Desire. One of the albums that I really picked because I really wanted to hear dynamics and I really wanted to hear a good acoustic guitar. Nancy Wilson is just incredible. This album, Heart, Dog, and Butterfly, is a very, very, very well recorded album. This is a 1978 original pressing. Uh, the title track, Dog and Butterfly, is simply stunning on this album and dynamic as I'll get out. And Heart's always known for, just really, I don't know, heavy metal type of music with a lot of dynamics. This album is no different. I know Dreamboat Annie is probably their uh, really biggest to fame type album. And I love that album. It's a great one. I have it on several different pressings actually. But this album, I just absolutely love. Dog and Butterfly. What an incredible sounding album. A great acoustic guitar by Nancy Wilson. And just seriously great dynamics. And staying with dynamic albums, The next album on my list is Dire Straits on Every Street. Now, this is not the original 1991 version. This is the 2021 re-release where they took, instead of one single 33 RPM, this album has two 33 RPM albums on it. The lacquers were cut by Chris Bellman as well. Of course, the original was done, let me see, I believe it was by Bob Ludwig. Yes, Bob Ludwig, but the lacquers on this was cut by Chris Bellman in 2021. Fantastic album. Of course, you got the classics on here. Calling Elvis, is such a huge song on this. You and Your Friend, and of course the title track on Every Street. Tons of incredible songs on here, but on side four, there's a song called My Parties, and there's a saxophone in there. And well, there's a saxophone on a lot of the songs on the album, but there's a saxophone in there that is just has such an incredible detail on these new speakers that it just was surprisingly, just surprising to me. Right after My Parties, there was also a great song. It's called Planet of New Orleans. These are just great songs, and I just really never listened to them quite the way I've listened to them lately because they just take on a new sound, a different presentation, a level of detail. And I realize that Dire Straits on Every Street is, that's used as a demo album by a lot of folks. I get it. It's demo quality worthy. It's not necessarily I don't know, an audiophile standard, but I guess in some senses it could be, and maybe should be. But the level of detail on this album is just simply stunning on this. And speaking of detail, on the speakers, I've done most of my listening with the grill covers on the Wilson the Watt puppies, but I have taken them off, and I've listened to some music with them off. I'll be honest, I haven't listened to it long enough to really see if there's any difference with or without the grill covers on. I guess that's probably a good sign of a good grill cover if you can't really hear the difference. But I really haven't really done, I don't know what I would call it, critical listening to see if I can actually hear a difference. But most of my listening experience has been with the grill covers on uh, of the speakers. But anyway, uh, Dire Straits on Every Street. Really, really listen to My Parties. What a great cut! It's on this version of the album. It's on side four for song. What an incredible sounding album. Next album on my list that I've been listening to intently is Billy Joel, Cold Spring Harbor. Now, this is not the 1971 original release. This is a 1983 reissue of the album. It was actually mastered by Doug Sax at the correct speed. If those of you are familiar with this album, when it was first released in 1971, it was released a little bit faster than was intended. This new release, the 1983 release, mastered by Doug Sax, was remastered at the correct speed. And so anyway, and keep it in the line of piano type of music. I love Billy Joel. I've got every one of his albums. I love Billy Joel. This is one of my favorites. Cold Spring Harbor. Of course, what's the name of the song? She's Got Away. Probably the biggest hit on the album. The other hits on the album, Why Judy Why, and Falling of the Rain. Falling of the Rain is probably one of my favorite songs on the album. Absolutely, just a stunning album. Gobs of detail, just absolutely really good. I mean, it's not a dynamic album. It really isn't, but there's just so much detail, in particular in the mid-range and upper end. And with the Wilson Audio, the Watt Puppies, that's one of the areas that really caught my attention anyway. And this is just one of those albums where I put on and was kind of thinking I'd listen to a couple, three songs and ended up listening to the entire album. Just a fantastic sounding, well engineered, well mastered album. The next album on my list is Steely Dan, Katy Lied. This album is just, and probably one of the reasons why I may have picked this album is because I'm really getting excited for Analog Productions to release the UHQR of Katy Light, and I'm hoping they do that in January. Uh, but this album this is an original 1978 pressing of the album. It just is fantastic, loaded with incredible great songs on the album. Black Friday, and I've never heard Black Friday sound so good as it does on this album through these speakers. It's just unbelievable. And Steely Dan, if you're a fan of Steely Dan, when they do something, they just don't do something halfway or a little bit or this will be okay. They go after it. It's got to be precise. It's got to be perfect. I mean, on this album, like most all their albums, they get some of the best session players in the entire world to play on their album. And of course, this album is no exception. Doctor Wu, there's a saxophone in Doctor Wu that just sounds absolutely stunning. Bad Sneakers. These songs I've just never really heard in the way that I'm being presented with the Watt Puppies. It's just an incredible, and of course this album, I knew when I put it on, I couldn't just listen to a song or two. This was a full on listen to the entire album, both sides one and side two. And the original pressing is just fantastic. I've got the mobile fidelity version of it. And sure, it sounds good. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but this is the one I jumped to and listened to as the original pressing. It just absolutely sounds absolutely phenomenal. Great album. The next album is Paul Simon, Still Crazy After All These Years. This is an original 1975 copy of the album. I've got the one-step version of this album, but this was done incredibly well. Mastering was done at Sterling Sound, excuse me. But I don't know if it was Bob Ludwig. I don't know who did it doesn't say. I can't really find who exactly did it at Sterling, but it was remastered at Sterling. And the entire album, and I know that this is a super popular album of Paul Simon's, not to mention it's a popular album and altogether. But the entire album, side one in particular, is just full of incredibly amazing song. Still Crazy After All These Years. I mean, that's still one of my most favorite songs of Paul Simon's. It just sounds utterly fantastic. My Little Town, huge hit for Paul Simon. Absolutely love the sound of that album or that song, especially on these speakers. Like I said, this album's not a hugely dynamic in the way of top to bottom, mid-range and top end and imaging are just simply stunning on this album. Incredible original pressing, sound quality. You can see the vinyl here. The covers kind of had better days, but the vinyl's absolutely pristine. Great album. Next album on my list that I just couldn't put down and had to listen to the entire album was Carly Simon Torch. This is a 1981 original pressing of the album. Now, this one was done at Sterling Sound by Bob Ludwig, and so I do know that. Incredible sounding album. Carly Simon's voice is incredible. On Blue of Blue, there's David Sanborn plays the sax. You just got to hear it. It's just unbelievable. It sounds like the sax is dead center, but about 6 feet beyond the back wall. It's just, and the definition is just simply stunning on these speakers with this album. Carly Simon Torch. The entire album spectacular, very laid back. I don't know if you'd even want to call this adult contemporary. I don't know. It's not really pop rock for sure. But boy, I tell you what a great album by Carly Simon Torch. The last album that I wanted to share with you that I've been listening to is Dan Fogelberg and Tim Wesiberg, twin sons of different mothers. Can I just tell you, this is a 1978 original pressing of the album. It's phenomenal and dynamic. Tim Wesiberg's flute throughout this album is just simply stunning. The first song on it, the first song on side one is just really kind of, let me get the name of it for you. Twins theme. It goes right into Intimidation. it's just it's incredible and hugely dynamic. And I tell you what, that is one of the things that I just love about this album. It's throughout the entire album, is just dynamic in presentation from top to bottom, and there is good bottom level resolution. Uh, it's just an incredible sounding album that has got incredibly great music, and that's really the albums that I've chose uh, today to share with you. And I got a bunch more that I'll do on a video in the next week or two. The jazz, I've been listening to some incredible jazz albums. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to share that with you. But what an incredible album this is, that is just fine detail and absolute resolution, but really hugely dynamic. And that's really one of the things that has really I'm getting used to with the Wilson Audio, the Watt Puppy speakers, is they are, and I said this right from the start, they're very full bodied. They just they just cover the entire spectrum, at least in my room, just in a way that I've really never heard before in my room. And I tell you what, it's just a journey that I'm so excited. I've got many things more that I want to do with my audio system: amplifier, preamplifier, phono preamp, digital front end, speaker cables, interconnect cables, power conditioning, so forth. I got many more things to do, but I got to tell you right now, I am just absolutely having the time of my life listening to albums and music on these new speakers, getting used to them, getting accustomed to them, and getting accustomed to their capabilities, which I've only scratched the surface. I know I haven't really listened to a ton of, I don't know, audiophile type recordings on my system as of yet. I've just been listening to stuff that I know well and that I absolutely love, and I have been treated to an entirely different presentation in the audio, uh, in audio in my room. I just can't even begin to tell you how wonderful it's been. I'm super excited to share more of this venture with you and tell you about these secret speakers. I do know that here along end of January, maybe even February, I'll do a complete review of the speakers and kind of tell what my impressions are at that time. My initial impressions, at least just about 3 weeks into it, is, oh wow, I'm just going down an incredible journey that I am just grateful and thankful that I'm having the opportunity to do it. And I really enjoy sharing it with you. Please leave your comments in the comment section below. I really love to hear from you. Love knowing what you're thinking. Love knowing what you're listening to. Please leave comments in the comment section below. If you like what you see, please go ahead and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate that. I have got so much coming down the pipe. Really quickly, the next couple of days, a few days, we're going to be doing a review of Al Jarreau Wow Record Store Day album. We'll also be doing a review of The Doors Live in Detroit, another Record Store Day album. I've got 3 or 4 albums from the Analog Productions Atlantic 75 series, including a couple of Genesis albums that I want to review with you and go over with you. Also, coming out this week, I believe, we're getting the new Miles Davis, The Birth of Blue album being released by Analog Productions. I can't wait to go through that with you and share with you that quality and that sound of that album once I receive it. I'm excited for that album. I've got a couple of Santana albums from Mobile Fidelity that I want to share with you. We got a ton coming down the pike. Please subscribe. Thank you so much for being with me here today, and have a great day.